Hi everyone, this is Matt. Welcome back to my channel. So you sent your CV and your cover letter to this company, and the next day they got back to you, and now the HR team is asking you to have a quick phone call, maybe 20-30 minutes, to talk about the job and get to know each other a little bit better. And they probably want to have this conversation the very next day or maybe within the same week. So what can you expect from this conversation? So the HR person will ask you first about the company itself. So we'll want to make sure that you know the history of a company, you know what they do, how many people they employ, where they are based, when they started. So make sure that you do a little bit of research on the company itself. Then they will ask you about your motivations for this role. So tell them what it is about the company that excites you, tell them why you want to work with this company rather than with any other company. Then following this, they will ask you about your CV. They will want you to summarize your CV to actually make sure that you did all of these things you spoke about. So they will have your CV in front of them, they will listen to you and make sure that everything checks. So maybe you should have your CV in front of you as well and just essentially summarize it quickly and make sure that you don't forget anything. After this, they will have some more technical questions, so they will ask you about your past experience that is relevant to the role. So talk about this, summarize it, and then after this, they will ask you for your salary expectations. Now, do a little bit of research about this, because if you tell them that you want too much, then they'll just put you straight away in the no pile, and this will be the end of it. On the other hand, if you tell them too little, then you're risking the chance of getting a very low offer. So make sure that you do a little bit of research and give them a good number that will be good for you and good for them. Following this, we'll probably ask you whether you have any questions. So at this point, I would have some basic questions prepared, like what is the size of the team you're going to work with? How many people are you going to report to? Do we have any onboarding training? What type of training? So some sort of basic questions that the HR person will be able to answer. You shouldn't really ask them anything technical because that's not their specialty, they will not know. So ask a few simple questions to leave a good impression, and then if the HR person was happy with you, then they will recommend your profile to the hiring manager, and hopefully the hiring manager will invite you for another interview. But this is so key to leave a good impression on the HR person, because they might fight for you to make sure that you get the interview. So definitely leave a positive impression, and then hopefully a few days later you'll get another email from them saying that you've been invited for the interview with the hiring manager. And again, this will be really quick. The hiring manager will probably want to talk to you the same week or the next week. So you need to know what kind of questions to expect. So let's dive into this deeper now. Some of the questions will be repeated. So they might ask you again about your knowledge of the company, then about your motivations and your long-term plan, whether you want to stay with the company for a few years or not. And I would definitely advise to say that you want to stay with a company for a few years, because they don't want to start looking for a new person in 6 months' time again. And also will ask you about your strengths and weaknesses. And what is quite important here is that you can't say that your weakness is that you're disorganized or that you're bad with people. This will definitely not lie good with them. However, for example, a good weakness could be that you find it difficult to say no to people when they ask for help, and that you're always, willing to help people. However, that puts you in trouble because sometimes you overwhelm yourself with too much work. So now the way you're trying to cope with this is that whenever someone asks you to help them, you first check your calendar, you check your priorities, and make sure that you actually have time and capacity to help people, right? So whenever you say about something bad, you also need to show them that you're working on it, you have a plan, and you're getting better at it. Another good example of your good weakness could be that you're finding it difficult to ask people for help. And this is because you find a lot of pride in your work and you really want to figure things out yourself. However, This is not always the best for the business, so you do understand that actually you shouldn't be wasting too much time and you should ask people for help when you need to. So you're also working on this and staying mindful of the timelines. When you talk about the strengths, cater them to the role itself, right? And for example, if you think that this role requires someone who is detail orientated, don't just tell them, oh, I'm very detail orientated. You need to give them an example to show, to prove that you are detail orientated. And it's the same for any other skill. For example, if you go with people, explain to them, give them a proof why you think you are good with people, right? And then after this, they will also ask you some technical questions. So make sure that you definitely know your stuff and you're able to explain it to people. And then there will be some competency-based questions. And these questions are basically about the soft skills because in the end of the day, they can teach you the hard skills, right? They may not have time for it, but they can teach you, or to some extent, they can teach you the hard skills. But what is really difficult to teach someone is the soft skills. So they will want to check that you do have them, and they'll be looking for real life examples from your past when you've shown certain soft skills. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. These type of questions will start with, tell us about when you did something, give us an example of something, or how did you do something, right? They will not be looking for a theoretical answer what you would do if you were placed in this situation. They'll be looking for an actual story of something that did happen to you, and they really want to know how you reacted to what you did. So you need to give them a story, right, as an answer, a full story. Now, a really good way to create a structured story is to follow the STAR method. STAR stands for S for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for result. Situation is the problem, task is what you were planning to do, action is what you actually did, R, result, is the metrics, right? You need to somehow give them a number, you need to measure the extent of your success. So you need to prepare multiple stories, right, that are going to follow the STAR format. And these stories will have to relate to soft skills that they'll probably be looking for. So for example, you'll be dealing with clients at some point. So give us an example of how did you go above and beyond for someone else. It doesn't have to be a client, just for someone else. Or, you'll be working with other people, so definitely they'll ask you a lot of questions about conflict resolution. So how did you resolve a conflict, or how did you handle a difficult colleague? Or, maybe someone was trying to push you to do something that was against the procedures or the rules, and then, how did you handle this person? How did you handle this request? They could ask you about optimizing processes, troubleshooting, improving processes for other people, for the team you worked with. How did you take negative feedback? How did you motivate a colleague? How did you explain, difficult, complex ideas to colleagues who are not experts in your field? How did you work under pressure, right? So a lot of different competency-based questions. So you need to have a multitude of stories prepared in your mind that you can quickly think of and then answer them in the STAR format, right? Situation, task, action, result. You shouldn't really have full stories prepared, but you definitely need to have a library of stories in your head so that you can, pick whichever one suits the best the question, because there could be thousands of different questions and you just need to pick one that will actually fit the question. And they might ask you multiple questions regarding the same thing. So for example, during my interviews, I happened to have 3 questions regarding conflict resolution. So it's worth to have multiple examples of fairly similar situations. And then remember, whenever you say these stories to them, you need to be cautious of how you sell yourself, right? How you present yourself. You definitely want to come across enthusiastic all the time, eager to work with them, eager to help, eager to solve problems, right? because this is the kind of person they want to work with, someone who's positive and driven. They're definitely not looking for someone who doesn't have much energy, or someone who it just doesn't seem like they're convinced this is what they want to do. So definitely, be very enthusiastic throughout the whole process, and make sure that your answers reflect the fact that you're willing to learn, you're willing to grow, and go above and beyond for your colleagues and for your clients. So following your first interview with a hiring manager, you might have another interview later, maybe with few of your colleagues, right, and your manager, so that you meet the wider team, and then you see whether you like them, they like you. So, a lot of that is about vibing with your employer and with your work colleagues, to make sure that you're on the same page, because after all, you're going to spend a lot of, time together. So everyone needs to make sure that you do get along. So remember, it is not always about a perfect answer, but it's about how you deliver it, right? Because they can teach you the hard skills, but they need to like you, and they need to see that you will get along with the rest of the team. That's the most important part. They don't want to hire someone who will do the job perfectly, but but will constantly cause problems, because this person will be really difficult to work with. So think about how you sell yourself, and then in the next episode, I'm going to talk to you about salary negotiations. And as always, if you benefit from this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because this gets me going, keeps me motivated to produce more videos, and I hope you will find it all super useful. Cheers.